This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. We're speaking today with one of our favorite regular guests, Matt Wolf. Matt's with the leading business firm, consulting firm who lives in the middle market private equity space, RSM, one of the great consulting and accounting firms in the world. Matt talks to us regularly about trends he's watching in the deal market. Matt, let me take it away. What are you watching currently? Are we set for an explosion of deals, or is inflation going to keep interest rates up? What are we likely to see?
Yeah, on the deal making side, it's a great point. We've seen a lot of forecasts for fewer interest rate cuts going forward, potentially as a result of increased inflation related to trade policy and other items. So we're having a lot of conversation on that. I don't know that it'll necessarily stymie deal flow so much, right? We're kind of getting used to this higher interest rate environment. It's come down some. They will continue to come down some, hopefully, as long as inflation remains in check. So I feel like, or what we're seeing, what we're kind of expecting is that initial inflation-related interest rate shock is over. Um, you know, Sponsors or bankers are sort of used to the environment, and of course, any easing will be welcome, but we'll be able to get deals done without it. I think the bigger impediment to deal making now is just the that future policy uncertainty, right? We have seen deals that in various stages, even fairly close to execution, be shelved, right? To see, okay, well, what exactly will immigration, trade, and other policies look like going forward? Now, this is just, the election has injected some additional uncertainty into the operating environment, and that is putting pressure on deal making and deal flow today.
That's absolutely fascinating because for a little bit we were all talking about the uncertainty of the election, and that putting sort of a little bit of a paralysis on it. Now you had a bit of a excitement around the deal world. No increase in capital gains taxes, some other types of things that people viewed positively, and now you see again a little bit of trepidation about what is this actually going to look like, a Trump administration where the first time in I think 12 years we've got the House, Senate presidency all lined. I shouldn't say that because it has been not that long ago, but it's been a while since the House, Senate, and presidency all on the same page, all at least on the same page, the same party. And people love and hate that because they,
Yeah.
they like the balance that it avoids anything serious happening, which is a problem. But now you've got the Senate presidency and the House all on the same page, and you got people a little trepidatious about what can happen. And that's not a knock on Trump at all. It just is a little bit of concern about what does these policies really mean and what will really happen.
Exactly. And yeah, you're right. It's not a knock on anybody. It's not a political endorsement one way or another. It's just the reality. And the reality is that any sort of analysis about how do we expect this business to perform in the future has been made more complex, right? You have to consider, okay, here's what we think, or a few scenarios of what we think future tax rates might look like. Here's a few scenarios of what we think future trade, immigration, whatever set of policies that are most meaningful to this deal, to this business will look like. And you have to game it out. And that's a lot of additional work, analysis, time, dollars spent to navigate that. Again, it's one of the recurring themes I think we talk about a lot on this podcast is that uncertainty. It creates cost of making decisions, and we're seeing that. It's certainly less uncertainty now that we're on the other side of the election, right? Because to that same analysis a few weeks ago, you would have to say, okay, well, first of all, who do we think is going to win, and then what do we think that's going to mean, right? So on the one hand, it might be sort of fewer scenarios to game out, but now we have more clarity, obviously, over the incoming administration, and we can get a little more serious about what those forecasts and models look like, get a little bit more into the details. And, some of the sponsors deals we've been involved with, those details say now's not the right time to buy this company or that company.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Yeah, no, I think it's fascinating to see the sort of where people are sitting and so forth. I mean, from my center right friends and my right friends, there was so much excitement to see the election, and now there's just one bit of trepidation to see what it actually means. And I find that to be fascinating, not good or bad, just fascinating. It's people that were not thrilled with the Biden Kamala administration, excited to see a change. But it's like the dog who catches the car. You got to be careful what actually happens, and that's not a knock. And I'm fascinated to see what happens. But you see, deal people trying to figure it out, what it
Yeah,
means
I mean,
for
we
employment
have a
costs, inflation,
deal.
et cetera.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well said, Scott. I mean, we have a scenario in which, Congress might pass tariffs for the first time in 100 years. Like, who knows what that looks like, right? I mean, there's really no precedent for that. So I think, you know, change is opportunity, right? So there will be opportunities to allocate capital in ways that increase value and create shareholder enterprise value for everybody. And so that's something that I think of, that I think everybody needs to think of, is that we are in this tumultuous period of change, as there almost always is with a new incoming election, a new incoming administration, right? And it's easy to kind of fall victim to this news cycle, that news cycle. But I think as we think about this sort of incredible amount of change, just remember that that also represents an incredible amount of opportunity, and that opportunity might be walking away from this deal and looking at another deal, or investing in an existing portco or something. Who knows what it exactly looks like? But change means opportunity, and there is going to be opportunity going forward.
Well, yeah, yeah, absolutely fascinating. Matt, anything else that's top of mind currently at RSM that you folks are looking at or thinking about?
I mean, we kind of covered it at a high level, right? But this policy analysis, there's just so much going on under the radar, or I guess under the hood, right, of what that means, and that we're spending significant effort to analyze that, understand that. We're going to start publishing some actual, like, now that we know a little bit more about what that'll look like. We being the entire business community, we're going to start publishing some of those viewpoints on the areas where we feel like we can actually say something meaningful based on what we know now. It's so complex, from supply chain impacts, labor impacts, inflation impacts, foreign direct investment impacts into the U.S. economy. There's going to be a lot more to talk about on these topics, again, as we get a little bit more information, so that we can kind of game out these scenarios.
Thank you. Just you're fascinating to see what's going on, Matt. It really is, and I do see like this incredible excitement, and then all of a sudden a little bit of people trying to figure it out again, what this actually means, and I find it fascinating. Matt, as always, your firm does magnificent work. RSM, best in the business. Thank you for joining us today on the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Scott.